I've heard someone say our use of technology is actually really bad from a sustainability perspective because we become so reliant on it, and it is energy usage and everything around it, right? So the more we use it, the more we consume, right?
Yep. Tech, unfortunately, has always been a double-edged sword. But I think the challenge for us collectively is figuring out what are the creative ways that we can use tech in order to mitigate some of it. So, for example, as we continue to progress down this world of AR, VR, for example, hopefully it gets to a space where it is that useful and that engaging,
Yep.
that will immediately reduce the need for physical travel,
Yep.
physical meetings.
Welcome to the Make Tomorrow podcast, where we venture into the heart of innovation and technology. I'm your host, Tristan Sternson, the global co-lead of our NCS Next business. We're going to invite on some very exciting guests onto this show. We're going to talk about their Make Tomorrow and how technology and innovation are shaping the world. Welcome. For the next episode, we have Make Tomorrow Sustainable with Howie Lau,
Hello.
Managing Partner Corporate Development for NCS. Howie, first thing I have to say, you are the best dressed guest I've had on the show.
It's just for you.
Yeah, thank you. For those of you who are listening, I can just describe a tuxedo, slick hair back, looking fantastic. So to get started, we're going to jump into the first question. And the first question, before we get into Make Tomorrow Sustainable, is going to be, if you could create a new product that doesn't exist today, what would it be and why?
I would say a intention translator. It would be an upgrade from a language translator because a lot of the challenges we have on the global level could be as a result of miscommunication and misalignment of intention. So we're pretty good now with language translators.
Yep.
So at some stage, if technology can help us deeper into who we are, such that our intentions get translated, perhaps that will solve a number of things and it'll be a lot more fun.
What's your intentions there, Howie? No, I'm kidding. So Make Tomorrow Sustainable, right? We had the Impact Conference yesterday, and one of the most amazing things that I heard was one of your speakers was from Google, and he talked about generative AI. But what I got out of that, and I was like, sustainable generative AI. So let's start there, like technology and sustainability. Like a lot of people don't think about the impact of it, but the more and more we use technology, we think, if we're using the cloud, we think, oh, we're going green, right?
Yeah, I think the starting point is that it is a common perception, and rightly so, that technology is a contributor to carbon footprints and the challenges we're facing today. All this amazing computing power does create footprint. But I think where we need to be thinking about is how do we use technology to actually create impact and reductions of the footprint. So if you look at it, there are many ways that you can potentially use technology, and a number of companies have already started thinking hard about it, because the frame we need to think about is not about one shade of green, but multiple shades of green. Because sometimes it's simple as an RPA solution that allows you to automate some tasks could help you reduce your footprint because things get a lot simpler.
Yeah.
The number of steps are a lot lesser. If you're able to use a bit of AI and a bit of data to optimize your vehicular route, your flight route, that reduces a lot of footprint. A prospective client of ours was talking about airline fuel. It says the airline fuel is obviously expensive. The green airline fuel is even more expensive. But he was musing that if I'm able to find an algorithm to reduce the amount of circling time and reduce the amount of wait time before every plane gets off the ground, the amount of fuel I save there because of the optimization is definitely going to be worth much more than investing in aviation fuel, for example, green aviation fuel. So I think there's a lot of potential, but we just need to start showing use cases and ways that folks can say, this is a good way of doing it.
And it's actually interesting. If we go back to your last question, right? If you could create a new technology, an algorithm that can reduce circling time to save on fuel, could you do it like weight loading as well? Like there's so many things you could possibly do, right?
Yeah, this whole area of just optimization.
Yeah.
A lot of clients and a lot of industries are looking at it as a way of reducing costs. But the same optimization technology not only reduces costs, but reduces footprint.
Yeah, wow. Actually, we're talking about ports and ports in countries in Asia, right? And obviously Singapore has a major port and trying to become a bit more, a bit more of an authority and a bit more of a route for all of Asia as well. But they were talking about being a sustainable port, right? How does a sustainable port work? Like you naturally think it would be sustainable to some extent, but is that again algorithms? Is it routing? Is it?
I think it's a combination of
Yep.
many things, because I think the other thing that we took away from yesterday's
Yep.
track on sustainability is that the view that it is not about having one silver bullet, but
Yep.
potentially many bullets.
Yep.
It is not about a singular organization working alone,
Yep.
but how do we act together? So it's going to be a combination of little things like the Google chap saying, I do my part by not throwing
Yep.
away the water bottle, to things like optimization, to things like within a common platform at a port, how do we exchange better information
Yep.
so that everyone is able to react a lot more speedily to changes. So I think it's going to be a combination.
Yep.
And it's going to be a series of experimentations.
So from a technology perspective, we can work on technology for sustainability. We can work on technology to impact sustainability as well, right? So if we look at, let's start on one area, right? Internally, the technology for sustainability. How do we see our responsibility internally in companies to kind of say, okay, well, as a technology company, if we're guiding our customers to something, you should use the most sustainable technology, the most sustainable cloud, the most sustainable algorithms or RPA or something like that.
No, that's a good question. I think the thinking we have at NCS today is across a few pillars. Pillar number one is that within NCS as a group, we do need to make sure that we are doing the right things.
Yep.
So internally, whether it's as simple that every building would have a series of green codes and solar panels, to the way we do energy management, to the way we equip our teams. So this whole area is important, because we do need to be able to say that we are doing our part and we're doing the right thing.
Yep.
The second big thrust is that we work with a lot of organizations across different industries on everything from their ERP to their HRMS to their AI system to their data system. Increasingly, we see three conversations happening. Conversation number one, clients are saying, can you help me with my sustainability enabled technology solutions? And a lot of it starts with reporting. But increasingly, clients are going beyond reporting, because reporting is just a starting point.
Yep.
The second area is in the area of existing solutions, where clients are coming to say, for my supply chain revamp, for my ERP implementation, could you help me understand the carbon footprint and the reporting behind it? Because whatever I implement, I need to be able to report it into my scorecard as well.
Yeah.
The third area is that there are some clients going like, there are many unexplored spaces in green sustainability innovations. Let's do something together. Nobody has a playbook right now.
Yeah.
But suffice to say, everyone has a broad categorization of what's possible. Reporting is one category, smart buildings is one category, smart IoT is one category, green data centers is one category, supply chain optimization is one category. But no one really has use cases that applies to our industry. So these three scenarios are conversations we're having. And I do believe that, fast forward a year, a lot of these will be a lot more solid and continue to be interesting.
So part of your background is also having roles in government as well. And in our previous podcast, we were talking to Sammy Lukanen about telco and the responsibility that's put on telcos and his was around making people more connected and being able to provide connectivity. Do you think as corporates, we should have more of a responsibility, and not a paid responsibility, but a social or corporate responsibility, to have to put in more sustainable solutions, or as a consulting firm to force us to guide people to more sustainable ways of doing things from a green perspective and environmental?
Well, the politically correct answer is, of course, yes. No one will say no to that.
But we're not getting paid to do it.
We're not getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
I think the whole construct of shifting away from just shareholders to stakeholders is the conversation across all industries.
Yeah.
So as with every organization that benefits from the community, I think all of us have a responsibility to make sure that we are able to add to it. And in a nice, odd way, we do believe that given the work we do across with many partners and many clients, we have a unique, perhaps, opportunity to be a platform to convene capabilities and opportunities across different industries, different clients, and across different technology partners. Because we should be, I'll just pluck an example from the hip to say, we should be in a position to say that part of the starting point of any sustainability solution is about having good data.
Yep.
If you don't have good data, it's hard for you to know where you stand and the impact of the things that you do. One of the typical challenges from company on a standalone basis is that my data may not be rich enough. But guess what? We work across governments, we work across banks, we work across power companies, we work across regulators, transport companies. There may be opportunity, especially with now pretty cool technology coming out in data clean rooms and all this, to convene a platform where data is shared in a way that everyone benefits from a swifter, more accurate way of reporting in order to start the engine of sustainability.
Yep.
So that could be.
Yeah. So it starts with reporting, obviously. You got to understand everything and work forward from it. Now, everyone has an intent around doing things more sustainable. What are some of the small things we could do, you think, that as just in the technology space? Are there small little things we could consider, small things in the technology world we could think about?
Well, maybe I'll go back to your point regarding intentions.
Yeah.
I think as with every bell curve, you could argue that there are now more folks who have genuine intention to want to do the right thing for future generations, for whatever other reasons. I would argue that there would still be quite a number in the center of the bell curve that would say the right thing, but in the heart of hearts may not be there yet, and there's work to be done. And then there's a group that says, hey, look, this is not my priority. My priority is to get my minimum wage, my daily wage on the table to put food for my family. So not that there's a reason for it, but there will always be a group that this will not be a priority.
Yeah.
So perhaps collectively, how do we get this second group to say that, to move from verbalized intention to genuine intention? So, and I think there's no shortage of ways you can potentially think about personal contribution.
Yep.
I think it's not so much
Yep.
what, but on an individual level, all of us should try something.
Yeah, okay. I've heard someone say our use of technology is actually really bad from a sustainability perspective because we become so reliant on it, and it is energy usage and everything around it, right? So the more we use it, the more we consume, right?
Yep.
Do you think there is a trend? Like the more we become reliant on that. So RPA is good because that's kind of pulling things back a little bit. It's manual usage, but are there technologies like quantum computing and stuff that we think we become so reliant on crunching data that it actually might actually have a negative impact on the environment?
Tech, unfortunately, has always been a double-edged sword. From the lens of sustainability or from the lens of job creation, job destruction, it's always been a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So there will always be continued ways where tech will contribute to the emission.
Yep.
But I think the challenge for us collectively is figuring out what are the creative ways that we can use tech in order to mitigate some of it. So for example, as we continue to progress down this world of AR, VR, for example, hopefully it gets to a space where it is that useful and that engaging, that will immediately reduce the need for physical travel, physical meetings, remote healthcare. That remote care provision, remote diagnostics is really being provided, improves lives, improves health. But along the way, it starts to tick many boxes when we look at the whole UNDP objectives as well. So you have technology now being used for farming that reduces the need for the right amount of pesticides to be used in big areas. So each of these are already examples. But if you put the lens of sustainability, it's not a very far tweak to say that actually helps in ways that would also help us meet our agenda.
Wow. Okay. You got me into a favorite topic of mine, agri-tech.
Agri-tech, all right.
Let's go. All right. I hope we got another hour here because now we're getting into the real guts of it.
Yeah.
Agri-tech, if we can get it right. So the farming industry, the most ancient industry in the world, right? And it's really antiquated when it comes to technology. Like, have you seen anything cool in that space, technology-wise, that we could say it's going to make us, maybe not great, make them more efficient, which by byproduct of that is going to make us more efficient and more sustainable?
I think in this space is a confluence of a couple of things. I met a couple of startups, and one of them was talking about their focus was simplifying the ways that farmers in remote parts of Indonesia was able to get their little plots and their little farms, their goods
Yeah.
available directly to the consumer.
Yep.
I look at the app, and from a technology perspective, it was nothing. It was such a simple
Mhm.
take a photo, stick it up, and off it goes. But it started to change lives in Indonesia because they were able to raise their income because no longer do they pay all the middlemen.
Mhm.
But which does mean that the middlemen have to find something else to do.
Yeah.
So I think it could be as simple as that to a couple of guys who are piloting blockchain enabled Wagyu cows, Wagyu beef, so that the precious cow is
Yeah.
tracked all the way across the whole value chain.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with you. It's a space that is growing tremendously, and there's just a lot more that can be done because connectivity now is so much better.
So the one that I saw, or the few that I've seen that I like the most, are around health and well-being of the animals, right? So whether it's, I don't know what it was, it was an infection that the queen bee can get that can infect the whole population and just wipe out the pollen and everything. But the other one was mostly in cattle,
Oh,
because
yeah.
the way you farm is to let them roam, right?
Mm.
And if you can't track them and see where they are, one gets sick, they all get sick, you lose the whole flock, right? So there's there's good in in the health and wellness of them, but B, in the agriculture side of it, it's fantastic.
The
So
yield, the production,
yeah,
the quality.
and I can only imagine as well, like the amount of reduced fuel consumption we have nowadays, because you can have autonomous tractors and electric vehicles and stuff doing cropping and weeding. And the one technology we saw that's really cool was video technology that identifies if it's a weed or not, and then chops it
Oh,
rather
that's
than
cool.
cut down the whole crop.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. So I think there's some cool stuff out there. So agri-tech, I reckon, I think that's an untapped area, to be honest. I think of something to do. We look at the airlines because they're big on aviation fuel, but anyway, so it's an interesting one. Is there any other industries you think we should really look at, or ones that could be really impactful?
I think for if I wear back the NCS hat, obviously we will continue to do and support all our government customers.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a lot we can do with the telcos because of the reach and the platform and the connectivity they provide. But the key industries for us obviously would be the healthcare, the
Yep.
aviation, the transport, the industrial and commercial, the banks. So
Yeah.
we'll continue to work with these customers because every single one of these customers have a sustainability agenda. Every one of them are trying to do the right thing.
Yep.
Because their customers are demanding of it. Their employees are asking of it. And their regulators are putting standards behind it as well.
Yep. I'm going to jump completely to a different topic.
All right,
autonomous vehicles.
autonomous
right?
vehicles.
And the reason I do that, we're walking downstairs, you got all the robots, but I was in LA last week, and I thought the only place that did the delivery of like food for an autonomous vehicle was on Sentosa with Grab, right? And then I see this little robot follow me across the street. I videoed it, and it had a pizza on it. Tried to grab the pizza. I was not as quick as a robot, and it's not healthy for you, right? Autonomous vehicles, like, different topic. Number one question: when do you think they will be implemented globally? Actually, number one, do you think they'll ever will be fully autonomous?
As a good consultant, I will answer you in 3 different ways. One is that from a technology readiness, I think we are almost there, if not just a little bit more, because connectivity is already at the right level with 5G and all that. In terms of the sensors and everything else, I think we're there. The challenge has always been around regulation, around laws, around liabilities, and the rest of it, because I think we've seen the first autonomous car so many years ago, but a lot of it is still being debated on liabilities and who's responsible. So I think that part around technology will probably take a while because it's going to be hard for us getting to a global standard. An example I can think of is that I first saw the autonomous flying taxi. I think it was 5 years ago at CES.
Yeah, okay.
So
Was it a drone?
yeah, it's
A 4-person drone or something?
no,
Yeah.
it's a 2-person drone. It's a
Yeah,
big
okay.
drone with open propellers,
Yeah, right.
and then there's an iPad-looking thing, and all you're supposed to do is get inside, press your destination. You will hover up to 100 meters, and bring you there.
Yeah.
Technology works.
I think I saw one at South by Southwest this year. I sat in one, but it was like, it wasn't going off. I'm not getting in
Okay.
one yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you didn't want to
Yeah.
let it go off
No,
because
no.
you know it's okay if my parcel gets dropped, but
You don't want to get dropped from 100
not
meters.
me,
No,
because
no, not
my
going to work.
insurance won't cover it.
Yeah.
So the whole legal and everything else around it is the one
Yeah.
that has to come together. So
Yeah.
I think that's one area of challenge. The second area of challenge would be around trust,
Mhm.
because today we trust technology inherently, but it will still take a while for us to trust autonomous vehicles uh, naturally.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, part of it is Hollywood's fault because of all the robots movie. Um, but that trust factor would be, I think, the second one that is inhibition. Again, not technology, but again, trust. Then third would be related to standards.
Yep.
Because today we still cannot agree on whether it's USB-C or something else.
Mhm.
Up to today, we still have multiple standards of
Mhm.
different platforms. But for this to be truly pervasive, it needs to be at least one standard within the country before it gets to the standard on across countries. So I'm biased because we're from technology, so technologists are not at fault. It's everyone else that needs to get their act together. But
Yeah.
but on a serious note, I think it will be exciting because the over time, each of these pockets of the legal ecosystem, trust as well as standards, they all come hand in hand.
Yep.
Once the legality is sorted out, trust will start to grow.
Yep.
Once regulation gets more aligned, trust
Yep.
will start to grow.
So I'm going to put this podcast in a time vault, right? And I'm going to bring it back to you in 5 years' time and 10 years' time, right?
Okay.
Because I want to ask you one question.
Mm.
What year do you think autonomous vehicles will come into play?
Autonomous cars would be in 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years. Okay. So
autonomous flying thingy-majiggies for
Yep.
people will probably be 30 years.
Okay. All right. So in 2033, I'll play this back to you.
All
and
right.
We'll see if you got it right. Okay.
Okay.
And in 30 years, what's that? 2053?
I won't be here. Yeah.
Well, okay. I help you with the longevity side, Howard. And
Yeah.
with healthcare
Yeah.
improving, like that's another problem too, actually. I mean, longevity is an area that I like doing as a personal side project.
Mm.
That's going to, I mean, we look at over here as well, the silver tsunami, but people are living longer,
Mm.
right? That's another factor with technology and sustainability, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's one that we need to really consider. Okay, so I saw this demonstration. So I asked you the year because I remember seeing a demonstration back in, I think it was 2018 or 2017. They said 2025 was the year, right? We're not going to get to 2025 with autonomous vehicles. And I saw them parking up the side of buildings.
Mm.
And it was actually a sustainability presentation. And the reason for it was because they said they would halve the amount of cars on the road and they'd all be electric, etc. Right? Obviously, there's new fuels, there's new electric vehicles and stuff coming out on the road. But we now learn that that's not one of the big factors, right? There are huge factors out there. What are some of the biggest factors in technology that we could possibly, like we know data centers, data centers tick, that's the number one. What's probably the second biggest factor that we need to figure or some of the big things that organizations need to look at?
I think the usual, everyone looks at being able to make use of data a lot better.
Yep.
So
Yep.
everyone talks about it, but I don't think we've fully exploited the potential around using data well.
Yep.
The sad part is that there is better and more clever use of data for nefarious reasons than
Yes.
there is for bona fide
Yeah.
commercial reasons.
Yeah.
So somehow the other side of the fence seems to have figured out ways of using data in smarter, more clever ways.
So when you say nefarious, we're talking cyber security,
Whether cyber
criminals.
scams,
Yep.
hyper nudging, hyper targeting.
Yep.
But there are many ways that
Yep.
potentially on the commercial level we can think about data.
So that's interesting. Nefarious reasons for data, right? So we're working out we can do things better because we can make money off it.
Yes.
Right. So that's a mind shift, right?
Mm.
Is it generational? Like, we get to the next generation, our kids' generation start coming through. Your kids start coming into the industry. Do they start demanding that it's not all about money? It's now about the environment.
No, it's a
Or
good
do we just think that because we're a bit older?
I think it's a great question. I do think that the next generation mindset would be very different. I remember there was I I got involved 2 years ago with a panel to talk about gaming addiction because there was some gaming addiction when I was still working for the government. So that was probably 3 years ago. So there were some potential challenges of gaming addiction by kids.
Mhm.
So as preparing for the panel, I went and talked to a couple of young folks. And one of them said that that world, whether it's Fortnite or otherwise,
Yep.
is actually my real world. This physical world is full of stress,
Mhm.
full of things I cannot control. Um,
Yep.
in that world, I can be myself.
Yep.
I can be a unicorn.
Yep.
I can be a six-arm ogre
Yeah. Yeah.
with swords and guns. I can be anything I want, and I feel that I'm more me in that world. That comment kind of shocked me because that kind of comment kind of got me to realize that my lens, based on what I grew up in my generation, will no longer be applicable because the younger generation are native. We always use the term native digital
Yep.
loosely, but native digital could really mean that our young folks are already player ones.
Mhm.
They are prepared to live in that world because that's their primary world.
Mhm.
The physical world is a secondary world. So I think in a way your question is right in that they will be thinking that we
Yep.
grew up thinking that getting a job means getting paid. But in the future, getting a job could mean I'm paid in terms of things
Yep.
that are meaningful to me.
That's
So
interesting.
I don't know.
That's really interesting because we had the previous episode we had with Sammy talked the same thing. It said some people would feel socially more accepted. Like they might go to a school and they might have no friends, but they can go into into the metaverse, and all of a sudden in the Fortnites, in whatever game they play, or the universe that they exist, they are liked,
Mm.
right? I see a social challenge in that. And I know this is sustainability from environment, but I see a social challenge in that as well as to, yes, it is okay to exist in that world, but is it irresponsible for parents or people to allow that to exist? Or how does that change our social makeup in the universe? And I don't know. It's an interesting topic, isn't it?
The next podcast. We'll
It's
focus
the
on
next
it. It's the
podcast.
next
Yeah,
podcast.
exactly. Exactly. How do
Yeah.
we exist in the metaverse? But
Yeah.
no, that's really interesting. When I think about green technologies, right, and I think about the reporting side of things, we always, as I said at the beginning, we always go back to what we can do internally, right? One of the most interesting examples that we had up yesterday was around an art gallery, right? And how we could do things in an art gallery to make them more sustainable, right? And turning on electricity and art and demonstrations moving through as well. One of my favorite industries is the sporting industry in smarter cities around stadiums and stuff. Have you had much experience in the stadium space or the smarter cities and seeing how people are turning on parts of the city or turning off parts of the city to make it work?
I think we see pockets of it, uh, but again, sometimes it's just not packaged in the right way
Yep.
to help people understand the possibilities.
Yep.
There is a project that NCS has done with the cruise center.
Yep.
Whole bunch of sensors in different parts of the cruise center, from the baggage handling to the check-in counters to the toilets and everything else. And the sensors, together with computer vision, was able to give a whole bunch of dashboards.
Mhm.
But the intention that was done was to say that if the baggage uh, carousel is overcrowded and
Yep.
you need more people, they are able to dispatch. If the check-in counters are overcrowded, they're able to dispatch.
Mhm.
So it's real-time optimization of resource. They were even able to say that the sensors were able to give them a indication if they need to send cleaners to the washroom
Yeah.
a
Right.
bit more
Yeah.
frequent to change the, to clean up the place.
Yeah.
So I think the smart building space, there's already a lot of examples.
Yep.
It was originally driven because of the need for optimization per se.
Yep.
The optimization obviously is leading to it. In Singapore, the Building Construction Authority has very strict guidelines. So a lot of new buildings have to have green standards.
Yep.
But many are going one step further to build basic stuff now, like
Yep.
air conditioning or new architectural design that allows better airflow to reduce the need to do air conditioning.
Yep. I'm loving this conversation on optimization. It's got my data hat back on and I'm thinking AI and how we can optimize it. And I was just thinking when you were saying that, right? We talked about, obviously with the airline industry, when a plane comes in and it's circling, right? Do you ever see a world where we prioritize a plane to land based on sustainability? So what I mean by that is we've got a what is it, the 787 or whatever it is, the
No.
two-story, and we've got more people coming in. We know it's cheaper. No,
The priority will always be safety.
always safety. Yep.
It will always be safety.
Okay, so we've got 2 aircraft. I'm going to play this out. We've got 2 aircraft circling in the air. They've both got the same amount of fuel. One's got 100 passengers, one's got 300 passengers, but the 100-passenger aircraft has come in earlier, right? Would we make it circle longer for sustainability if it was just as safe for both of them, or they're just going to let the first one land?
No, I don't pretend to be an aviation
No,
expert.
I think it's more of a, it's not ethical. It's just a general, like, it's our way of operating. But yeah, no, okay. It'll be interesting if that ever happens over time. Like if we start optimizing certain things around sustainability. I'm sure there'll be industries that
I think there'll be some
possibly look at
places it makes
Yeah.
sense to put sustainability as a primacy.
Yep.
But there will be other places that profitability will be a primacy. There'll be other places where safety of the consumer will be a priority.
Yep.
So I don't think it's a blanket, because sustainability will become important, but I don't believe that it will become the only thing that's important.
So crystal ball. There's a magical crystal ball on the table that you can't see. It's in the metaverse.
In the metaverse, yes.
So we've got a crystal ball. 10 years away, new technologies come along for sustainability or technology. What can you envisage in the next 10 years? Where are we in 10 years from today? Except for autonomous vehicles, because you've already told us they're 10 years away. Is there anything your crystal ball goes for us?
I think it's less of a crystal ball, but more of a hope.
Yep.
That we do need to rapidly move away from the whys of sustainability to the hows, and the hows has to translate into actions, because every other report is coming out to say that we are reaching a state of urgency that we need to act.
Yep.
So I don't think it's a crystal ball, but I'm hopeful that more companies would be putting a lot more focus around actions, a lot less discussions on reporting per se, but things that would actually start to move the needle, because there is no one silver bullet. There will be multiple. It's not by one company. It's going to be by many. So hopefully in 10 years' time, we have nice, cheery report to say we're back on track for the 1.5, as opposed to now we're off track for the 1.5.
Yep. My last question for you is, if you're going to change the thinking of people, right? So I naturally, going into the conversation yesterday, right, I was naturally thinking, generative AI, and then I'm like, a bottle of water, right? For my query, I'm going to use a bottle of water. Another one I learned years ago around the different products you use. So you use a cotton, there's like 20 bottles of water sort of thing. Can we change? What's something we can change in our thinking today as technologists? Like when we're thinking about putting in technology, should we start thinking about the technology we're working on? Like what can we think about to change our mindset a little bit?
I think the social norms, the bell curve we talked about,
Yep.
it's already moving.
Yep.
You talk to every other young person, it's their baseline.
Yep.
You talk to every other middle-aged person, they're getting to become their baseline. So I think the social expectation is moving faster than the corporate action.
Mm-hmm.
Corporates are still largely measured by EPS, by EBITDA, by revenue, by dividend yield and revenue share price. So corporates haven't really done that shift, but I suspect that corporates will start to shift a lot more, because the social side will demand, clients will ask for it, your talent and your employees will ask for it. But rather than being forced to do it, I'm hopeful that more organizations will start take a bit more action. It also means changing of measurement. That what would the board be measured on? What would the CEO be measured on? What would you and I be measured on? So once the measurement change, people respect what you inspect. And if today all you inspect is a dashboard, you will get a dashboard. But if tomorrow you inspect your actual measurement, that could change.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'd love to see KPIs that align to people's jobs that kind of say, you will get paid if you do this. And we're not there yet. I think we need to get there at some point in time.
At some point. I think at some point we'll get there, but most organizations are not. But the good thing is that there's no dispute on the why we need to do this compared to 5 years ago. Right now is trying to build that, to galvanize the action of the house and the actions.
So we've gone from an intent machine
to agri-tech
to optimization. Wow. Eye-opening conversation around sustainability and technology. So we'll make tomorrow more sustainable. with Howie.
No,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
If you found today's episode interesting and want to hear more about our Make Tomorrows, please subscribe to our channel.